Hello and welcome to Disrupting the Wealth Gap, a virtual series designed to help you achieve and sustain financial freedom. This is part 3, which is focused on helping you or someone you know get out of debt and get onto the path to financial freedom. Today, we have 3 guests who are going to share practical tips and strategies to help you climb out of debt and get onto the right path. We have Tamika Stembridge. She is the executive director of the dfree Global Foundation. We also have Bill Foltz. He is a financial wellness expert at GreenPath. And Latoya Ball. She is the managing director of the Newark chapter of Perscolas. First, this morning, we are going to begin with Bill. Bill, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Brittany. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. For those who don't know about GreenPath and the wonderful services you offer, do you mind describing a little bit about your organization and its mission?
Yep, not at all. GreenPath, we are a nonprofit, HUD-approved housing and financial credit counseling agency. We provide financial counseling in the areas of housing counseling, credit card counseling, student loan counseling, and really anytime anyone has questions about their budget or about credit, if they want to improve their credit. We counsel nationwide in all 50 states over the phone and even face-to-face in 20 states. And most of the counseling we offer, with a handful of exceptions, is absolutely free for the public.
For the individual who's watching and they're saying, you know what, I'm in debt, I need to get out of debt, what are some of the things that you would say to them?
First thing that I would always say to anyone is you want to take stock of where you are. And what that means is, either start a budget or do something to understand how much you have coming in, how much you have going out, and how much debt you have. When I was a counselor and I was counseling people every day, you'd be surprised at how many people I spoke with who they knew they were in trouble, but they didn't know how much trouble they were in. And the reason it's important that you take stock and you know where you're at is you need to know what's realistic for you going forward. At GreenPath, we're always going to try to help you figure out a plan forward that's realistic. But sometimes you might be speaking directly with your creditors. And creditors like people. Some creditors are going to care. They're going to be reasonable. They're going to try to make sure that you're doing something realistic. But some aren't going to care. They're just interested in what you owe them. So it's up to you to make sure that you know what's realistic for you, so that you're not committing to something that you can't handle. Because if you do that, you're going to get yourself in more trouble.
I'm glad you said commit to something that is realistic for you. So often I've run into people and they say, I hear everyone telling me to just put more money aside, to just stop spending. But they also say, due to the income that I have coming in, there really isn't much discretionary income to make extra payments on their debt. So what would you say to someone? What can they do in those situations to get unstuck?
Once you take a look at your situation, a lot of times, I don't think I've ever seen a bad situation that budgeting couldn't improve. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to solve all your problems by budgeting, because that's not going to happen. But I have never seen a bad situation where someone didn't take stock of where they're at, where they're looking at their income and their expenses, where they weren't able to say, hey, I can save money here. I can save myself $15, $20 here, and it adds up. Maybe you cut out paying for HBO Max if you're not using it regularly, or you're cutting back on one of the food subscriptions like HelloFresh or something like that. Things like that can add up. And once again, it's not going to solve all your problems, but it can open doors to help you relieve the pressure a little bit.
So then if someone is interested in reaching out to GreenPath to get help with all of this, what should they do?
Yep, they should give GreenPath a call at 877-444-5606. Mention dfree. We've been around 60 years. We've gotten it down to a science of being able to figure out what you're spending. We actually use something called a predictive budget. That being the case, it does help if you know what you're spending. So and you don't have to know it to the penny, but have an idea of how much you owe to your creditors, how much your food is, your utilities, and that way we can help set up a realistic plan. So where to start is to give us a call. If you don't know those things, don't let it stop you. We can help you figure it out. It just makes it easier for everyone if you know those things. So if you don't worry about it. Give us a call anyway.
I love that. Thank you very much. And for anyone who's watching and you'd like the information that Bill just mentioned, we have the number and the dfree that you should mention when you call. It is mentioned in the chat, but it is also in the description. So Bill, now I'm going to bring in LaToya because I want to talk about, for the individuals who say, now it's time for me to start finding some more skills. And perhaps they would like to get a better job or get a promotion. So LaToya, I know Perscolas offers a lot of opportunities to individuals. First, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Brittany. I'm excited to be here representing Perscolas.
Oh, we're excited to have you. Do you mind describing what Perscolas does throughout the nation?
Absolutely. So Perscolas is a nonprofit, and simply put, we help to provide equitable access to education and economic growth. So Perscolas is IT workforce solutions, and we offer IT training at no cost to learners who qualify. Those courses can range anywhere from 12 to 15 weeks. So we have the likes of IT support, AWS, software engineering, and cybersecurity are just to name a few.
I love it. So who is eligible for this?
Absolutely. So anyone who is 18 and older who has a high school diploma or GED equivalent is eligible. So we do, our primary focus are individuals who are within 400% of the federal poverty income level. Various factors go into account when trying to determine eligibility. So we tell people, if you're unemployed, underemployed, if you have an interest in changing your career, to look us up and to go through the process to see whether or not you actually are qualified.
I'm glad you said look us up. So if someone is watching this and you're interested, you can go to perscolas.org, and there you will find information about how you can apply for all of this. So how often, I think you mentioned it already, the courses themselves are about 12 to 15 weeks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. And then I'm presuming they restart after that 12 to 15 weeks. So you do multiple courses within a year?
Absolutely. And so we have 17 sites across the US, and Newark, New Jersey is one of the locations where I happen to be. And we are celebrating in Newark just over 2 years in that location. But Perscolas has been around for 26 years. And so we have been working in the various communities, helping to partner with various employers, corporate partners who invest to help us bring forth industry recognized IT curriculum, as well as professional development, where we are partnering with various volunteers who come in, help with mock interviews, resume building and such. And then we also have a wraparound where we include financial coaching and licensed social workers who ensure that individuals are looking at this from a holistic standpoint, so that end-to-end wellness. So we have a terrific team that's in place that works in tandem with learners when they come through, so that they're able to be set up for success.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know LaToya mentioned it, but I just want to add one more time that it is free. That it is free. You don't even have to pay for the exams. I saw that online, or the certifications.
Absolutely. So we do have, most of our courses have a credential tied to them. It does not cost anything out of pocket, even for your technology. So we have tech toolkits for individuals who need laptops. We're able to provide those. We provide hands-on training, even in this remote space. The one caveat that I do always say, Brittany, while it is free, you do not have to pay. It will cost you. And so it will cost you your time and your commitment from that 12 to 15 weeks. And when individuals join with us, they're not just there for 12 to 15 weeks. We have a 2.5-year minimum commitment that we make to every learner who comes through. So you come in, you're able to take advantage of this course. It is a rigorous course. It will require Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 commitment to be able to partake in this program. But then once you graduate, you continue to have access to professional development coaches, financial coaches, licensed social workers who will continue to support you, as well as business solutions or employer partnership individuals who help connect and expose individuals to our many partners in our network that help individuals get jobs in the IT sector. So we are diversifying, not we personally Perscolas, but we as in the Perscolas family. That's the staff and our learners and our alum network.
I love it. And then one of my last questions to you is, where do a lot of the graduates end up going afterwards?
So they go to many of our employer partners here in Newark. I can speak specifically. We have our Prudential partners, Audible, Barclays. So it really varies because IT is very vast. And so it could be in healthcare. It could be in, nonprofit. It could be in corporate. Google is one of the individuals that we have a partnership. AWS is another partner who have employed our graduates. So it really is limitless. It's just a matter of individuals committing the time. They come to Perscolas, put in the work, and then we work with them. We don't get them a job, but we absolutely provide the tools and support necessary for individuals to springboard into their ideal career in technology.
I love it. Thank you so much, LaToya. And you know what? You mentioned a great part about the holistic overview, helping someone. So I'm going to bring in Tamika in regards to what people can do if they're interested in trying to learn more about their financial education. For people who say, I don't know where to start. It's a little overwhelming. dfree helps people with that, and they do it so beautifully as well. Tamika, can you describe more about the dfree Foundation and the dfree Academy?
Absolutely. So the dfree Global Foundation is an organization that was founded by Dr. DeForest B. Soares Jr., former senior pastor of First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens, initially as a ministry to help 1,000 families in his church to get out of debt. Since that time, that was back in 2005, so 16 years later, we've helped over 100,000 people to get access to dfree programming, whether it was a live event or our online academy or $1 Billion Challenge. We've been to over 4,000 churches. It really has been a movement of love built around this curriculum that he built based on, values-based principles and his own experience of getting into debt and getting out of it. And so it really is exciting work. We base our work around 4 major principles: getting started, getting control, getting ahead, and then giving back. And so if you think about your own financial journey, getting started, how did you end up where you are? Why do you behave the way you do around money? And we know one of the strong tenets of dfree is that most people's financial challenges aren't always just financial. And so there's behavioral, there's spiritual, there's psychological aspects that get into why we do what we do with our money. And so at the very beginning of dfree, we help people unpack that so that by the time they get control and start working on their budget and looking at their numbers, they can say, oh, this is why I spend so much at Macy's, or, oh, this is why I'm at Starbucks every morning, because these things are happening in my life. And so we do the mental part, we do the numbers, and then we talk about getting ahead. What's next? How do you plan for the future? Planning for retirement, figuring out how much life insurance to have. And then the last part of dfree is giving back. How do you share what you've learned with others? So you're not just sitting by yourself having your finances in order. You can help your family, you can help your friends, and then we can create this long-term, shift for primarily African Americans, but the content is available to anyone, to move us from being in debt, delinquency, and deficit living, all the way up to having accounts that pay dividends, deposits, and deeds is what we say are the positive Ds of dfree. And I know that was a mouthful, but there's so much that we offer, but that's the core of what dfree is.
No, it wasn't a mouthful. It was wonderful. I'm so glad you described all of that. So if someone would like to enroll in the dfree Academy, how much does it cost and how can they do it?
Yes. So the dfree Academy is what I've always wanted to say this, dfree in a box. It is everything I just described, live on your computer, on your phone, free of cost to you. And so the 4-part curriculum with the 12 steps is all available in your hand. It is free. You get access to a free workbook that helps you to walk through the steps. So you're not just learning, but you're doing as you go along, and it costs you nothing.
I love that. And then the last part is just, where can someone go to get it?
dfreefoundation.org is our home. You can learn about the dfree Academy. You can connect with our team if you have questions. You can join our $1 Billion Challenge. All of those things are available to you, again, free of charge. Our job is to put together content and curriculum to help you figure out where you are financially and figure out your way forward. And we do all that for free.
I heard you describe something. Do you mind explaining a little bit more about the $1 Billion Challenge?
Okay, so the $1 Billion Challenge, Dr. Soares likes to liken it to, I don't know if you guys remember the £1 Million Challenge years ago. I'm probably dating myself, with Ian Smith, but it is a collective campaign to help 100,000 people pay off $10,000 in consumer debt. And if we do that, we will have paid off $1 billion in debt. And not just getting out of debt, because that gets us to zero, but ideally we're taking the money that we would use to pay off the debt and apply it to something positive. So whether it's an investment, an insurance, or a deposit account. And so we are trying to shift close the wealth gap one family at a time. So if one family is paying down $10,000 in debt, for each dollar in debt that they pay off, it creates positive income and investments on the other side. And so we are using the $1 billion challenge to do this work together. So if you are clear about where you are financially, or you want to start working on your debt pay down plan, you can use the $1 billion challenge to build out that profile for yourself. It's free, it's confidential. You can join by yourself or with a group. So if you have a group of friends that's committed to getting your financial lives in order, set a goal. Say, we're going to pay down $10,000 this year together. Whatever you put in personally, none of your friends can see. All you can see is the progress that your group is making towards the goal that you set. And so it's a really exciting tool. To date, we've paid off over $32 million in debt with our community in the platform. So we know it works. Again, it's free, it's confidential, and we're doing this work together.
I love that. Thank you for describing that. Forgive me if you mentioned it already. Where can someone go for that?
Yes. So dfreefoundation.org is the hub for everything. If you want to go to just $1 Billion Challenge, the site is billiondollarpaydown.com. But everything you need, dfree Academy, $1 Billion Challenge, other content and resources, dfreefoundation.org will get you linked in.
Wonderful. Before I bring everyone back on to begin to answer some questions that we've received, I wanted to ask you, the dfree Academy, you mentioned that it's an online course, someone can take it for free. How long is the course?
It's as long or as short as you want it to be. Ideally, the program is set up as 4 levels, and there are 3 steps within each level, so there are 12 steps. Ideally, you would do 1 step a week. So it could take 12 weeks. That way you can kind of pace yourself through the content, but also make the lifestyle adjustments, because that's the thing. We all know how to budget. We all know what we're supposed to do. We just don't do it. And so you want to give yourself the time to make the adjustments. But if you want to just go through the content, you can do it in 12 days. You know, if you want to do an hour a day and kind of take yourself through the content, you can absolutely do that. I'll also do a quick plug, only because I mentioned group work on $1 Billion Challenge. If there are groups that want to use the dfree Academy together, let's say you have, you know, a church group or a school group or a group of friends that want to do this together, we also have a leaders course available where you can learn how to use the dfree Academy to help other people. So that goes back to the give back of dfree. So you can take the course for yourself. You can also take the leaders course and learn how to use it to lead others through the process.
I love that. This is wonderful. Thank you so much, Tamika. Now we're going to bring on Bill and LaToya and Tamika to answer some questions that a lot of people have. All of your organizations are absolutely amazing, and they all provide wonderful services to individuals. So as you feel so led to answer this question or any of the questions, please feel free to jump in. I think, Bill, the first one really is more targeted towards you. We had someone ask, what type of housing loans are there, and what is the difference between them?
That is a great question. I'm going to go back and give just a little bit of history. Back in 2008, when I first started as a financial counselor, people were getting all kinds of exotic loans, like interest-only loans and loans with various arms. And a lot of times banks were giving these things out like party favors, and they were given out to people who really couldn't afford them. And really the most common type of loan that most consumers are going to get, that's really good for most consumers if you're looking to buy a home, is a fixed rate loan where you know exactly what your interest rate is and what the payment's going to be. Your payment is going to fluctuate each month anyway because of your homeowner's insurance and your property taxes, but your principal interest should stay the same. Now, for a lot of people, and no matter where you live, most states have housing finance authorities that where if you're a first-time homeowner, you qualify for down payment assistance. You can qualify for maybe a lower interest rate. And a lot of times, you know, it's amazingly simple to qualify for a lot of these. For many of them, you just have to be a first-time homeowner to qualify for it. So I would definitely reach out to your state housing authority. Sometimes even your county might have a housing authority, but at the very least, your state ought to have one. And you can find out what types of loans are available for your state. You can also speak with GreenPath. We can help you figure out what options are available in your area. We have a database of resources and referrals where we can help you figure out what's available in your area that you can qualify for.
So if someone is interested in buying a home, should they call GreenPath a year before they start, 6 months before they start? What would you say?
I think a year would be a good rule of thumb, and it might not even take you a year. You might find that you're more ready than you thought you were. But what I don't want is someone to call and say, "Hey, I want to buy a house in 6 months," and it turns out you've got 2 years worth of work to do. So I think a year is pretty realistic. I think for most people, to say, "Hey, I want to buy a house within a year," the next 2 years, for most people assume you've got reliable income and that you're doing a good job with managing the debts that you have. I think for most people that's realistic. And for a lot of people, it's not going to take that long, but some people it might. So yeah, you want to give. I'd rather give yourself more time, and kind of like the expression, under promise and over deliver.
Good one. Thank you, Bill. All right. So the next question, I think this one may go towards Tamika. Susan called in. She said, due to the pandemic, she started shopping more because she kept looking at her home and she wanted to spruce it up. So she said, how can I get control of my spending and live a financially free life?
So that's a good one. I think the pandemic hit all of us in that way. I think I had a few more Amazon boxes than I'd like to admit because of the pandemic. But the first part of dfree is get started. And the biggest part of the get started step is identify what the issue is and address the mess. So if you know that you're looking around your home and it's because you've been home more and that's what's driving your spending, try to shop your house, shop your closet, focus on things that are, that are there that you can already use in your home as opposed to looking outside. Also think about why you're spending what you're spending. You've been in the house more. Do you miss your family or friends? I think that is a huge part of it too. We're trying to kind of use stuff to replace people since we can't, interact in person. You're looking at your couch and like, oh, that couch looks lonely. It needs a pillow. No, you're lonely and you probably need to go visit some friends. Start a Zoom conversation, do something else, and really try to get to the root cause of what's driving it. The other thing is, and these are practical tips, take your credit card information out of all of your online shopping accounts. The harder it is to access the information, the harder it is to shop with it. But if everything's already built into your accounts, clear the cookies on your computer, unsubscribe to all the shopping emails that you have, because now that you're in the shopping mode, now you're getting more coupons. Now you're getting the sales. So Home Depot's at your door every 2 seconds. And so you have to kind of cut the habit off at the knees. Once you identify why you're doing what you're doing, then take some practical steps to stop it. The other thing I'll say is to kind of flip the process on its head. If you spent the last 6 months shopping and bringing things into your home, let's focus on spending maybe the next 6 weeks getting rid of things from your home. Maybe you want to have a garage sale when the season changed. Maybe you want to sell some things on Facebook Marketplace. Look for opportunities to recoup some of what you spent or to perhaps bring in some additional income. I'm a huge fan of selling clothes. Like, I think I have more clothes than anybody can imagine. But styles change, things happen. I'm a mom now, so the party dress I wore 2 years ago is no longer the party dress I'm even thinking about wearing. So I resell clothes. And so that's a way for me to recoup some of what I've lost. And then I use that money to either pay off an existing debt, put it into a savings account. So kind of turn the process on its head. And sometimes if you're able to control it mentally, it really can become an additional stream of income as you start shopping and selling the things in your home and in your closet.
Those are all great tips. I love how you said take your credit card information out of the service, because I know some of the sites, they make it so easy for you. Like, you're just looking at
just
it,
one click. It's like buy, and then it's gone. It hits your account. You don't even know how they got the credit card information. They found it. It's there.
That's actually advice that GreenPath gives also. Take your payment information out of those apps. It just makes it too easy.
Yep.
Love that.
We call it friction costs. If you make something harder to do, then you're going to think twice about it.
Yeah, if you have to get up out of your bed in the middle of the night to go get a credit card to put it on Amazon, it will stop the process. You're not going to want to get out of the bed. And so you just take everything out. Take it all out.
That's a good one. Cause yes, I'm right there with you as a mom of little kids. I'm like, if I can just sit for 2 seconds, I'm like, I don't feel like getting up and going to go get that card information. So I'm just not going to get it today.
Exactly.
I love that. I have one follow-up question for you. Susan is actually someone who went through the dfree Academy at one point. And so this is her reality right now. She would like to know, can she go back through the dfree Academy?
Yes. So the Academy is not a one-stop shop. You can go back in, you can retake the 12 steps, you can go focus on a specific step that you missed out on. There's also going to be masterclass content in there. So if there's topic specific information that you're interested in, so, whether it's student loans, like Bill said, or if there's something around managing credit card debt, you can find that content in the Academy or on dfreefoundation.org. So once you have an account in the Academy, it's always yours. You can go in, you can take, additional classes and do a refresher. Life changes. And so you may need to go back and look at your habits, a year from now, 6 months from now. Like I said, I'm a mom. When I was shopping for just myself or trying to plan my finances for just me, it looked very different than doing it for a child. And so you want to make sure that you could, have an opportunity to go in and check in on your finances. And I would say, I know Bill and Latoya, you probably see the same thing. As people's lives change, they're going to show up for different things and different resources. So by all means, we encourage you to stay connected to the Academy and stay connected to dfree.
Love it. Thank you. All right, the next one. Jessica wrote, and this might be for Latoya, I'm a single mom interested in going back to school, but finances are tight after I've paid for childcare and other expenses. How can I go back to school without going into debt?
So absolutely, I think I can answer the first part of that, or initially anyway. So there are many options in lieu of college. So where even if it's college where you have Pell Grants or other things that allow you to be able to go back to school for free, or at a reduced cost. Proscolas is a free IT workforce solution, meaning that you can go through the program, obtain a viable skill, and come out debt free. And it's 12 to 18 weeks. So I think the first thing is really identifying, as a single mom, I was a single mom, what is your schedule? And so really understanding what that looks like. Proscolas has 17 different campuses across the US. So depending on where you're located, I'm sure there's a course that can fit your schedule, but it's identifying what that looks like. It's 12 to 15 weeks through Proscolas. And if you have an interest in IT, you don't have to have a background in IT in order to take part in the program. The application process is very simple. And we have individuals who can actually help to walk individuals through that process. And what we do works. We've been in business for 26 years. We've trained over 14,000 individuals. We have more than 500 people, employer partners in our network. So Proscolas is a viable option, as I'm sure there are many others. And so that's the part that I would talk about from the education standpoint. And I'll turn it over to one of my peers on here from the financial standpoint.
Yeah, I would say, an option like Proscolas makes sense. In this day and age where student loan debt is just such a huge racket for everyone, I don't think anyone's rushing to take on a loan to learn something new. So in addition to programs like Proscolas, there's YouTube University, there's all kinds of things that are available online for you to pick up new skills. In fact, I coached a friend a few weeks ago. She was working as a nurse and she wanted to move into a different field, but still using the same skill set. She found some articles on like she wanted to apply nursing skills in a human resources setting. She found a couple articles and kind of pieced together her own learning plan of how to transition and offer her skills in another area. And so don't discount the internet as an option, at the very least, to start exploring what you're interested in, so you don't go down the path and start making financial investments in something that you may not ultimately want to do. And so I would say definitely use the internet for some preliminary research, whether it's Proscolas or another program that's out there. You may definitely find something that doesn't require the financial outlay that a traditional education would.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, here's the next question. Someone wrote, I recently got out of college and I have a lot of student loans. The monthly payments are too high and the income from my job won't cover my living expenses and the student loan payments. What should I do?
A lot of times when you have student loan debt, especially if you have the student loan debt provided by the Department of Education, there are options to make that student loan debt a little easier. I mean, and there are probably about a half dozen different options I can think of off the top of my head. Now, not all of those option scenarios are going to fit every single person, but I don't think I've seen too many people who doesn't fall into one of those categories. And it may be something as simple as I say, for instance, my wife, she went back to school about 10 years ago and got a master's degree. She works in the state of Michigan. So she qualifies for public service forgiveness. That's not an option for everybody, but if you do qualify for it, it's something to look into. You can look into possibly doing a short-term deferment or even refinancing those your student loans or having an income-based repayment. Depending on your situation, there are options you can look into. You do want to make sure, once again, that you're educating yourself on those options. Some of those options come with unintended consequences. Sometimes you might get in a situation where you're negative amortization, which means you're paying less than the interest that's being charged. So that's why it's important that you do educate yourself. And I feel like it's self-serving to keep mentioning Green Path, but we can offer education on how to make sure you are making the right decisions as far as your student loans and how to pay them easier.
And Bill, feel free to mention GreenPath. I'm glad you did. So you said, so if someone needs help with student loans, in addition to their mortgages, they can call GreenPath, right?
We can help you figure out what your options are. I mean, and we want to make sure that we're mentioning the options that are going to make sense to you. I mentioned the public service loan forgiveness. Well, if you work for Ford Motor Company, you're not going to qualify for that. So we're not going to mention that to you. We're going to mention the things that's going to make sense for you.
I love that. Thank you. And Tamika, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, it's also really helpful. We have a brochure that we put together, dfree for young adults. And there's an entire chapter dedicated to student loans there. And one of the first things we recommend is take an inventory of the kind of loans that you have. The accounts, whether they're private or federal, whether, what the interest rates are, if they're subsidized, unsubsidized, to really take inventory of what's out there. Because like Bill said, some programs will apply to your federal loans. There are very few relief programs for private loans. So if you've taken out private money, refinancing might be the best option for you. But if they're federal loans, everything that Bill just described are available to you. And so before you start making any decisions, really get a handle on what's out there and then start to say, okay, what can I afford? What are my options with these loans? What are my options with these loans? And then it will make Bill's job easier when you do call GreenPath if you know what you have out there. Because some people just see the bill and they don't have any idea of what's in there. I hate to say it, I have a law degree. I have probably about 12 different student loan accounts for each semester that I was in school. But every loan is different. And so I didn't want to consolidate them. And so again, you have to know what you're working with before you start making decisions on how you're going to move with them.
Well said. Thank you.
Brittany, can I make a comment? So I thought about in listening to this regarding the student loans. One, if you don't have to take out student loans, with all of the options that are out there, I wish I would have known before I took out. I value college education. And even with the young lady that talked about going back to school, I value college education and wouldn't knock it. I have a master's. But had I known or had I had these options when I was younger to go to like a LinkedIn or to go to the internet and really educate myself, because there are organizations that if they see that you are putting in the work to educate yourself, then you can still get a job. And if you're interested in IT, again, ProScholars is a great option where you're not having to pay, but really explore those options. And again, not speaking against college, but if you can avoid getting into debt, there are many free and less expensive options.
I love that. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, here is the next one. Aiden wrote, I am a first-time homeowner. However, due to the pandemic, my partner lost their job and we are struggling to make payments. How can we avoid foreclosure?
The number one thing I say to people if they're looking to avoid foreclosure is, number one, seek help as soon as you can, before you get behind, if you can. One of the biggest myths I saw when I was a counselor were they thought that you have to be behind to get help. And so they would allow themselves to go 2 or 3 months behind before they reach out and get help. And, make sure that you are keeping lines of communication open with your creditor. whether you call GreenPath or an agency like ours or not, or whether get anyone help from anyone else or not, keep the lines of communication open with your creditor. The earlier you speak to them, the more likely it is that they are going to be able to help you. Now, there are programs that can help you if you are concerned you're going to get behind, such as it could be something as simple as a temporary forbearance, where they might temporarily reduce your payment, or they could do something like a loan modification, which is in some ways is very similar to a refinance. In some ways it's not, but they can temporarily reduce your interest rate and your payment, and you have a shorter payment, and that can be anywhere from 6 months up to 5 years. Once again, calling GreenPath, we can help you figure out what your options are for your mortgage, whether a loan modification is going to be a good fit for you or not. Sometimes we'll speak with people, and we may discover that you're not going to qualify for a loan modification. Let's not even waste your time. Maybe you should be looking into maybe a forbearance or some other options. But the thing I would say to anyone, if they even think that they're probably going to be getting behind, if for instance, not everyone is surprised by a job loss. Sometimes you know ahead of time it's coming. That's when you start looking for help, trying to figure out what your options are. Now, if you do get behind, I'm not saying don't seek help. Seek help as soon as you can, but you're better off getting help as soon as you can.
Thank you. I just want to add on to that. We don't have a question about it, but I just wonder for individuals who are renting, perhaps, and I know that a number of people have just been struggling because of the pandemic and their jobs. If someone is renting and they find themselves, I guess, getting behind on rent payments, can they call GreenPath for that to help them find a strategy to get out of their situation?
If you're behind on your rent, or you're certain that you're getting behind on your rent, GreenPath does offer rental counseling. And depending on where you live, there are probably local programs that's either offered by your state or county or even city government, or even local organizations similar to dfree that might be able to offer you assistance with your rent. Unfortunately, a lot of the programs available through the federal government, such as the foreclosure the eviction moratorium, those have sunsetted and they're not coming back. So that assistance isn't available anymore. But there is help in other areas, and a lot of times people don't know what that help is or even where to go and get that help. GreenPath is your resource, or we can help you figure out where to go to get that help that you need.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you said that. A lot of times people don't know where to go for help. So one of my final questions for all of you is, what is your advice for anyone who's watching, who feels, as if they're in a hole and they're in debt and they're trying really hard to figure out a way to find what their next is for them? What would you say, each of you, to individuals who kind of feel like hopeless because of their debt situation or their educational situation?
I would say just stop everything. Just stop, take a minute, take inventory of where you really are. And, without getting all spiritual on you, think about what's the worst thing that can happen today if I just take a moment to figure this out. A lot of times, okay, this bill collector's calling and this person wants some money and this is happening. And you can't really deal with the totality of what you're facing because you're dealing with one fire at a time. I almost want to say, take a moment, put all the fire together, and then write all the fire down before you start dealing with it, because it's very hard to deal with. Like, you may fix your cable situation, but if your car is getting ready to get repossessed or your house is getting ready to get foreclosed on, if you're not looking at the total picture, you might be making promises on one end that are going to hurt you on the other side. And so don't feel hopeless. You do have control. You do have the power. Pause, take inventory of where you are, and then you can always reach out to dfree. If you need help, I'm sure you can reach out to Bill or Latoya wherever it applies. And then you start to reach out for holistic help, or maybe you call your bank first and say, this is where I am. I lost my job. These are all my bills. What can you do? There are financial counselors at your bank. Just making sure that you can get a handle on where everything is so that you're not fighting the little fires. You can really start to put everything together and put your energy towards solving your overall financial or personal picture, whatever you're dealing with, as opposed to fighting one fire at a time.
I love that. And I agree. I would say it is definitely take that moment to pause, because life, as the saying goes, life comes at you fast. And so really just breathe and then understand that you have options, and every success begins with one step. And so taking that moment, write it all down, write down where you are from a financial standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and then go back and look at, okay, what are my goals? Where do I want to be? And then when you look at what is your end goal, and that can be fluid. And then you reach out to who you need to on the financial side, and then you reach out to who you need to on the educational side. And sometimes there is an intersection. Like at Per Scholars, there is an intersection. So we do offer IT training, and we also have financial coaches, and we have licensed social workers who can actually connect people to resources. But whatever that field is that you're interested in, there are connections out there, and the internet provides a lot of that, but it really, and then know that you're not alone. And so I think that's one of the things that oftentimes when we see all of those little fires, we think, we get embarrassed, we get in our emotions, we get in our head, and we think that we're going through this all alone. And we're not. There are many other people. And if we would just take a moment, especially in our community, and speak up and stop allowing what happens in our household to stay in our household, then we can start knocking down those walls. And again, it is taking one step at a time. I'm a fan of a 90-day plan. It's always fluid. Create a plan. 30 days from now, I want to be here. Even if it is, I've called the collectors. Whether it's good news or bad news, at least you know the news. And then just allow yourself to start checking those things off.
Great points. Thank you.
And I would add that, it's sometimes when you're struggling, when you're going through something, you're a little too close to the situation. And sometimes when we're stressed, we don't make the best decisions. I've been there. I've been out of work. My wife has been out of work. I know what it's like to say, okay, what's not going to get paid this month because we don't have the money coming in. So it's always a good idea to reach out and get help from somebody who's not in the situation, who can be a little bit objective, but also making sure that you're getting help from the right people. It's okay to go with your friends and family if they have experience in that area. My wife has worked in insurance for over 20 years. So if I have an insurance question, I'm going to her. But you don't come to me because I don't know a whole lot about that. But if you don't have anyone close to you who has experience in that area, reach out to a professional, reach out to dfree, reach out to Green Path, where you can speak with someone who's detached. And I'm not saying we don't care, because we do care, but we're not in your situation, and we can give you objective information.
Great points as well. And I'm glad you said that, because if someone's watching and they'd like some additional financial advice, Prudential has financial advisors who can help anyone. So what we're going to do is we have information in the chat, but also in the description for anyone who would also like to reach out to Prudential's financial advisors as well. We are getting ready to wrap it up. My last question to all of you is there anything that you would like to add or say that I have not asked you?
I would just say, take everything that you're learning. It's a lot to digest, but process it. I'm a fan of lists. If LaToya's a fan of the 90-day plan, I'm gonna get your list together within that 90, get your 90-day list together. Take it all in stride. You're not alone. Even watching this and being a part of this conversation is a good first step. So I would say just give yourself time to process. It didn't take you an hour to get into debt or get into whatever you're into. You're not going to solve it all in an hour, but just allow yourself the room to plan and figure out what your next steps are and take it one day at a time.
I would say it's always a good idea to take stock of your situation, even if you're not in trouble, even if you're not expecting anything bad to happen. Take stock. It doesn't hurt, a couple of times a year to go through your budget, go through your expenses, see what you have coming in, what's going out. And it's not because you're expecting trouble, but it's because you want to be ready for something if it happens. It's the same reason we keep fire extinguishers in our home. We don't want to have a fire start, but if it happens, we want to be ready for it. Take stock, even if you're not expecting trouble, even if you're not expecting to get behind. Take stock and know where you're at.
And then I would say, just remember that you can always learn something new. And so just even during this conversation, I've learned some new tips and some new tricks that I can put in my toolkit, because you never know when you might need them. So always keep an open mind. And that's one of the things when we get emotional, when we're frustrated and things happen, we can tend to shut down and then really not take in, or if we feel like we've grown or graduated or been delivered from a particular space, and we become closed-minded. But it really is keep an open mind about the opportunities that lie ahead, and then just do your homework. Know what's for you, and be okay, one, with saying no, and then two, with listening to your authentic voice. Know what you want to do, know where you want to go, and then seek the necessary, appropriate, and qualified help to help you achieve your goals.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. For anyone who is interested in reaching out to the dfree Foundation or enrolling in the dfree Academy, please go to dfreefoundation.org. If you'd like to enroll in a PERSCOLAS class or even apply, please go to perscolas.org. And if you're interested in GreenPath and their services, please contact them by calling 877-444-5606. And when you're asked to mention how you were referred, please mention dfree. And once again, thank you all for joining us. Coming up in part 4 of our series, we're going to walk you through how to create your short and long-term financial goals, how to set them and achieve them. So thank you all and have a wonderful day.